How are you guys doing? This is Martin from Gardens for Life. And for those of you joining us for the first time, you can ask us any questions you might have. And if you're watching this afterwards, after the live stream was broadcasted live, you can join us next Thursday at 9 o'clock. So please feel free to let us know if you have any questions. Let me just check here. It looks like we are no longer live on Twitter now. Twitter seems to require us to go on a premium account now. That's okay. We are live on a couple of YouTube channels, on our own one, Birdland Homestead, and Gardens for Life as well, and on Facebook. Now, just bear with me for 1 second. If you guys have any questions for me in regards to gardening, if you've seen any of the videos, you'll know what to ask about. Anything that we're making videos about here, like no-dig gardening, lasagna and forest gardening, perennial plants, actually any kind of plants at all. We always want to learn more. We're always interested in learning about various different topics. How are you doing, Mike? Thanks for joining us tonight. Geez, Mike, I'm sorry we still haven't visited. We've just been so busy here in the last couple of weeks. It's been something different every day. Hello, Kevin. How are you doing? So we're actually renovating the house partially as well at the moment, and we're bringing in all of the fuel for next winter. Actually, the fuel I'm bringing in now, like wood and turf, for example, is actually for 4 or 5 years from now. The rest of the fuel is already gotten for this year, next year, probably pretty much the year after that. But I will have to gather up some more wood. Luckily, there is a lot of farmers around that don't seem to mind if I cut out some of the bits and pieces out of the piles that they've left. Of course, I do ask. So we have a question here about drying or dehydrating food. Hello, Danny. How are you doing? So, hello, John. How are you doing? Everybody's here tonight. So we'll wait for people to join, and then I'll get into this week's pictures. I just took some pictures in the other garden, the big garden, earlier on today, and I want to talk about those a little bit. Kind of like a little bit of a sort of a picture tour real quick. And I like to take pictures of what's new and show it to you guys every week, kind of to hold myself accountable in a way, and just to open up for public discussion as well. So if you have any topics you'd like to discuss, please let me know in the chat. So please do type the word question in front in all capital letters, just so I know that the question is directed towards me. And if it's not a question, that's okay. I'm happy to take whatever kind of topic you like, especially to do with gardening, homesteading, growing and preserving food, chicken keeping, even websites and business design and starting a business. We've done all of that. Hello, Elizabeth. How are you doing? So I'll start with the first question. Mike's question was, let me see here. I'll just put it into the screen. For those of you on the audio, I will make these available on our membership page in audio format. So you can download them from there, and all these questions and answers and live sessions, you can listen to them if you wish afterwards. So dehydrating food. So basically, I would suggest starting. You can get a dehydrator, but they're a little bit expensive, probably starting at about €200, and they're electric, so they use an awful lot of power. If you have a lot of excess power because you have solar panels at home, then that's one way of using it and utilizing all that extra power. However, I would suggest probably if you're connected to the grid, it might be worth considering how many hours it needs to dehydrate things for. It could very well be up to 24 hours. And if the machine uses a lot of energy, of course it's going to add to the cost of that food. And when you dehydrate food using heat, it's not really very beneficial because it loses a lot of the flavor. So because you're kind of forcing the moisture out of the food by, well, spreading heat under it. You can also build your own dehydrator for that matter. The trouble is, though, the heat evaporates some of the oil as well. So especially in herbs like leaves or flowers, medicinal plants, for example, even peppermint or chamomile or feverfew, such as, hang on, this is feverfew here. I just brought in a few flowers and bits to show you today. So you can dehydrate these. I have a video about it, actually. Sorry, not dehydrate them, but harvest them. And then you can dry them using a net, actually. It's just, it's not called a dehydrator. It's just called a dryer. So all it is like a net that folds together. It's round and about probably 2.5 feet or 75 centimeters in diameter. And you can hang it up, and it has lots of levels in it. And you can put your flowers or your leaves into it to dehydrate them in the greenhouse, for example, in the summertime, or in a room that's heated in the winter. However, the trouble is it doesn't really work for berries. Now, I haven't tried it, though, to tell you the truth. I know that berries take a lot longer to dry than other just leaves and flowers. Leaves and flowers, typically speaking, a few days will do it. But you don't want to dehydrate things too quickly. So never dehydrate tea, for example, any kind of leaves, I guess, mint, for example, or lemon balm, in a room where there is a direct heat source, like a stove. I wouldn't put it over a stove or a radiator anyway, because that will dehydrate it too quickly, or it'll dry it too quickly, and the oils will, some of the oils, they're the volatile oils that actually will basically evaporate. And some of your active constituents will also go away with that as well. So in food, it's the very same thing. If you're dehydrating food using electric dehydrator, it'll work. It'll be a lot cheaper to buy the machine than using a freeze dryer. But a freeze dryer would be the ultimate way to preserve food, because it actually brings the food down to minus 18 degrees Celsius. And I have to say Celsius because some of our audience are in America, where they use Fahrenheit. Not sure what it is in Fahrenheit. Maybe some of you guys can help me with that. Minus 18 Celsius. What's that in Fahrenheit? But I know that it's going to freeze the food and then bring it back up to the freezing point. Basically thaw it slowly, and it's actually in a vacuum chamber. So dehydrating food is very different. Freeze drying food is very different from dehydrator, because you're using heat to extract the moisture, which is never good for the nutritional profile of the food. So, hello Bianca, how are you doing? Again, freeze drying, when you freeze dry food, it actually doesn't lose the flavor, and it also doesn't lose pretty much any of the nutritional benefits as well. Minus 0.4, so pretty much 0 Fahrenheit, more or less. All right, thank you, Danny. So I have a question here. Hope you guys don't mind me putting your questions up on the screen. I'm sure you're well used to it by now. Would you spread compost for a no-dig bed on a shaded section that had tarp down to kill everything, or a non-treated one that gets more sun? Would cardboard and compost suffice? So the way, if I understand correctly, probably the best way to approach it is, you can, if there is some of the weeds. But first of all, Danny, if you want to get started straight away, you can use cardboard and then put your compost on top, and that's the end of it. And pretty much none of the weeds will come through, except for some of the perennial ones, maybe. And when they do next year, they'll be real white and stringy, and you can pull them up really easy. But if you have a lot of weeds, like say the existing vegetation is quite thick, I like to say, like in a field in Ireland here, for example, like that thick of grass, and in the summertime it might even come up to here, like literally probably 4 feet or 1.20 meters in height when it goes to seed. If it's that kind of grass, it might be beneficial to cover it with black plastic or tarp for at least 2 or 3 months during the summer, or 6 months over the winter, just to give you a good starting point. If the weeds haven't been completely smothered after you remove the plastic, but you do want to get started, you can still add a little bit of cardboard if you want to. Probably a lot less if you're using a combination of plastic or tarping and cardboard. I like to use actually all 3 methods, including the third one, which is poultry. So we just bring in chickens, they scratch up the weeds, and they eat them, turn them into eggs, at least partially, and they will get rid of them over time. So they won't dig up the roots of grass now, but they'll definitely beat them back and buy you a lot of time. So yeah, you definitely could, if you have time, use tarps. If you have no time and you have cardboard, use cardboard. So there's no harm. How much cardboard is up to yourself. I did make some videos lately. You can look up our YouTube channel or Odyssey channel, or our website for that matter, and you can check for the video series that we have, starting a no-dig garden. So sorry, John, I'll get to your question now. Hold on. Can you talk a bit about the design of your forest garden? I will do. Just bear with me for 1 second. And I am going to, let me see here. If only I knew how to invite you, Bianca. How do I invite Bianca? Bianca is in the live stream here now. Bianca is my wife, and it'd be great to have her in here. I know how to invite guests, but the trouble is the guests don't get access to other functions. So I'm not too sure. Sorry, Bianca, I cannot find it. But thank you for being here anyway with us. So let me see here. So John, I'll just answer your first question first. How about the design of the forest garden? So I didn't really design it. I kind of just paint the land kind of like a canvas using compost and plants. So in a way, I guess it's not a canvas until you smother the weeds in a way and put down your compost, because that's kind of your base to start with. And then the color really comes from not only the flowers, but any of the plants that you bring in. Even some of the vegetables can be quite ornamental, like this Daubenton kale. Take a look at it. Can you see that? So even if you only have these around, we use an awful lot of perennial vegetables in our forest garden, and our forest garden is ever expanding. So in the first year, I usually put down an area every year, or even 2 or 3 times a year. I just expand the garden a little, and basically I just add on to it bit by bit. I tarp some of the area. I might use some cardboard as well. I'll utilize whatever materials I have to expand the garden and to maintain the existing garden. Maintaining the existing forest garden is easy enough, but I'll get to it in a minute. So what I usually do is I smother the weeds, put down my compost, a good 4 to 6 inch layer, or maybe even more sometimes, but that's about 10 to 15 centimeters of compost in the beginning. And then I just plant it up. Mostly some annuals like vegetables, but also other plants as well that I'm just growing on for the season and that I'm going to be harvesting. So what I do is I simply put the plants down in groups, and I don't make garden beds or raised beds. I simply, if you want to start a market garden, I love the market garden idea and the whole design of it. And I like what Richard Perkins has done, and a lot of other gardeners like Charles from the Bull on Ark in Loughrea as well. Well worth looking up the videos on our website if you want to see the tour. That's the Bull on Ark in Loughrea. What I like to do is combine the market garden style with a bit of a natural kind of twist, as in I just covered the entire area instead of doing the paths separately with wood chips and filling up the beds with compost, usually with a rig of some sort. I like to cover the entire area with compost, and then I make my paths by simply walking on it, and I make them irregular so they look a bit more natural, and we gain a lot of extra edge in the garden as well. That means we get more biodiversity and fertility, especially in places where there is even small edges, like there's two different ecosystems meeting one another basically, and essentially it could be a woodland and a field, or it could be the ocean and the land. But in this case, it's much smaller. It could be down to an acre. In a forest garden, it could be 1 acre or 2 acres, or it could be a tenth of an acre. It doesn't have to be huge. So the wood chip paths, even the wood chip paths that are only about a foot or a foot and a half wide, they still kind of create a border between the wood chips and the compost. So that helps a lot, especially with beetles. And if you can get them to overwinter, they'll eat all the slug eggs, or they at least will feast on them anyway. They may not eat them all, but that'll reduce the slug population, something else. One thing I like to do is I like to plant a lot of annuals in the beginning and some perennials in between. And in the second year, I put more perennials in between. But the perennials that I planted, like plants that grow for more than 1 year, I may let those expand. So I'm not going to harvest them all. I'm going to harvest some of them and leave some of them in just to have for harvesting leaves or flowers or fruit, different berries as well, berry bushes. We love our currants and our gooseberries and the Japanese wineberry and the sea buckthorn. These are all really good, reliable food sources, but also sources of vitamin C as well. And I'm sure they're probably good for you in many other ways. And you could also do this from the very beginning, but I'm going to do it in the second year. Next year, I'm going to interplant some trees. Like these would not be canopy trees, so not very tall trees, only understory. And in my forest design or forest garden design, which I don't really do beforehand, I just kind of develop the garden as I go, and I let it develop organically so that I can kind of give nature a chance to sort of have a word as to where to put things. I do actually plant the same plant in multiple locations on the land as well, just to make sure that it does well and just to see how it does in different microclimates as well. So whether that's full sun and shade, or whether that's in a dry place or in a boggy place, like kind of like a place where there's a waterlogged bit of ground as well, which is not an issue once you have your no-dig garden bed layer down anyway. But usually in around the second or third year, then I would add a layer of wood chips on top of the entire garden, which means that at that point you cannot grow the brassicas. Things like kale, leafy greens rely on a nitrogen-based soil, and that's a bacteria-based soil. So the soil life, when you add the wood chips, your soil life's pH will swing a little bit, but it doesn't. I'm not worried about the pH. I would suggest basically it's going to turn into a fungus-based environment, and then it's going to the fungi are going to connect to your roots of your plants. Like any symbiotic mushroom will do that, like the King Stropharia, which is a really important component in any forest garden, because it's going to connect all the plants and make them, feed them and bring water up to them more efficiently and expand their root systems. And so your fruit trees such as apple, plum, all the basic fruit trees, and maybe some our more exotic ones like mirabelles and damsons and all those kind of ones. I guess we could throw in some Osage orange, which I'm starting now. I'm not too sure it'll grow here, but I have tried the persimmon as well. I've got a few different varieties of persimmon. Didn't do too well, but the figs are okay. The figs work in Ireland, even outdoors, but I would suggest trying a variety called brown turkey at first, because that'll do better than others. but in the greenhouse it grows twice as fast. So let me see here. So again, yeah, what trees do I use in the food forest or the forest garden design? Again, food forest is more of a permaculture term. I think that's not quite broad enough. I think forest garden is a better term because it includes a host of other varieties and types of plants as well, such as fuel wood, for example. Our willows and poplars, they're all hybrids, and so those varieties that we're using for kindling, for example, every year they grow a reliable source of wood, and you can cut it right back down to the ground, or even pollard them at whatever height you want, so you don't even have to bend down when you cut them next winter. And that's what we've done now with our shelter belt. So in the summertime and in autumn, they shelter us from the wind, they give us a bit of privacy from the road, but also they provide a lot of shelter for the birds and all the other insects. But also in the winter time, they lose the leaves and we can harvest the wood. So that can be repeated year after year without having to really do anything except for keeping the briars down, because they do grow in between. So let me see here. We have another question. Just chopped our jostaberry today. What do you normally make with them? We haven't used the jostaberry. We haven't actually harvested enough jostaberry in one go to make anything with them. We haven't bothered making jam either. I just literally haven't had the time to do it. But we do eat a lot of berries fresh in the garden, especially our young fella. He loves going around the garden looking for even currants and raspberries and jostaberries. We didn't get to eat very many jostaberries this year. The birds have been very hungry around here, and we don't mind. We let them have the berries. We're not going to try to stop them mechanically, like using nets or whatever. We just let the birds eat if they want to eat. If they need to eat those berries, we let them eat. We know that they're going to poop out loads of seeds of those berries, all the different varieties of berries actually, in the neighboring hedgerows within a few miles. So that's good news for the local ecosystem. And kind of secretly, that's my plan. Well, it's not a secret anymore since I'm broadcasting live here on the internet. But secretly, my plan was always to get the birds to spread the seeds in around the ecosystem. And maybe we can add a few new varieties of berries into the hedgerows of Ireland and feed more of the local wildlife. So I want to show you some of the pictures that I took. Let me see here. Bear with me for 1 second. And I'm going to just show you. Let me see. How is that? All right. Oh, can you see that okay? So that's the garden. Last week, I showed you the gardens and the homestead a little bit and the backyard in photos, because video would be a little bit laggy on the live stream because the quality of the video is very good. And this will do because it gives me time to explain, and it's better than a presentation, so to speak, because I don't have to do much to prepare for it. I can simply think of what to say. So in this garden, you can see a variety of different plants. That's our secret. Maybe it's not a secret, but it's our method of gardening, where we mix all the different plants together, but we keep them in a group so we know which variety is which. So here in this picture here, you can see comfrey in the foreground, and you have Portuguese kale going to seed, or sorry, red Russian kale going to seed, and rhubarb on the left, feverfew, great mullein here, the yellow flower, and purple tree spinach, white currant, red currant, black currant, curly willow, Jerusalem artichokes, onions in the background, perennial onions, Egyptian walking onions actually, and fuchsia, and paulownia trees. So you can see there's a lot of variety in one little spot. And this is the path in the garden. That's the bigger path, which we drive materials into the garden with. And you can see the grasses are taken over a little bit on either side, and I'm kind of sick of it at this stage. I might just put down a border again and just smother the grasses just to stop them from coming in. But this year has been the year of getting rid of more of the grasses on site. just to not have to deal with them every year, basically, especially not going to seed. But if you keep flattening the grass, it'll also not go to seed as well. So these are some alliums. So this is actually a tuberous leek, and that's the orphery. It's a Belgian vegetable, and tubers are kind of like garlic underneath, but there's lots of them in each of the bulbs, or there's like a cluster of cloves, and the cloves are round, and they taste like leek and onion, but without the spiciness. So they're really nice, and I'd like to grow more of them next year, and like a lot more, and pickle them, actually. That'd be nice. So this is a giant, it's actually literally a giant catmint. It is a giant catmint, and it has gone to flower now, and it is tremendous the way it's attracting the wildlife, and just in the form of insects. And you can even take cuttings from it, and it'll just root from those cuttings. I've heard it spreads as easily as mint. This is an entrance into the woodchip island, which is kind of a forest garden. It is kind of a forest garden, and it is only 5 years old. This is an apple tree, sorry, a pear tree, and an apple tree here on the left, and a marshmallow. So there's horseradish here in the foreground. We have always got all these plants here mixed in. So there is kale here, a different variety of catmint, and a marshmallow, and a valerian in the background, and lovage in the background too. So you can see we are not doing exactly what Toby Hemingway suggests, where you plant all these different plants that benefit one another into a polyculture and plant them close enough to each other so that they can benefit one another. We just plant them in groups, and sometimes plants get so big that is actually just 1 or 2 marshmallow plants here in the background, and they do grow massive, same as the lovage plants as well. Pretty much everything actually seems to take a new form in our gardens, and that's not bragging. It's more about, I've never seen plants not only grow to that size, but also they kind of change form, if that makes sense. They grow in a different way. They're much happier when you plant them straight into 6 inches of healthy compost, or compost with healthy soil life in it. These are the Japanese wineberries. I'm looking forward to those. They're kind of a small raspberry, and they're sticky, but they taste really good. This is a variety of wood mallow, and the flowers on this one are much bigger than the regular wood mallow. The regular wood mallow, I have it here actually, but I'll show it to you after a while. And the leaves are edible. The flowers are also edible, and they are short-lived perennials. So they can live for 3 or 4 years, and they usually go to seed. And the seed looks a bit like, kind of like a cheese wheel. So that's why they're also known as cheeses. Wood mallow usually grows at the edge, the forest edge. It's a useful plant. You can see here, there is a bee pollinating it. And I do catch an awful lot of bees now, especially today, even though it was a rainy day, but it cleared up after a while. This area here is at the very beginning, at the start of our garden in front, and I'm going to turn it into a little bit of a garden now in the next couple of days. I might as well utilize the space. I'm going to get more compost dumped here, but I want to use the space that was here before. At the same time, I want to use it instead of what was there before was actually just pots, plants in pots, and they're a lot of work to keep, so I'd rather grow more plants in the ground. These ones are so they're raspberries, and the birds, you can see here, the birds do take them. I don't mind. We're getting second crop anyway. This is a primocane, so we're getting a second crop of raspberries in autumn, and we don't mind the birds taking most of the first crop anyway in midsummer. We've got other berries in the garden at the moment anyway that we can harvest, but you can see how prolific the raspberries are, especially if it's a good variety and they're spreading by vegetative propagation, which means that they're just rooting and they're spreading by clumping, and you get more canes of the same variety, which is always nice. So all of these canes here, the new canes, they're going to bear fruit this autumn. And that's the area. I'm going to make a new garden here. not sure what to plant there yet. I never know. I'm just going to plant a mixture of things as I do. Whatever grows well, whatever I'm starting from seed, whatever I have, really. I mean, I usually grow a wide range of plants from cuttings and seed, and I grow an awful lot of like fruits, flowers, and vegetables, perennial vegetables, such as the rhubarb. This rhubarb patch is 3 years old now, and you can see it is prolific. It produces a lot of food, and you can harvest these until the end of October because it's Glaston's perpetual. So other varieties of rhubarb you should not harvest after summer. I won't get into the details now. And this is the other side of the woodchip island. So we have perennial onions here. I think they are coming up as a picture too. And again, feverfew seems to just spread itself all over our garden, and it's awesome. We love it. We can dig it up and put it into a pot, and it'll grow on from there. So feverfew is a perennial, and it's also tremendously useful. It's nice for bouquets, nice for bringing in the insects, but it's tremendously useful for medicinal purposes as well. And here's our very photogenic dog. That's a GPS, by the way. He has never run away, but he's always been loyal to our pack. So, but we have the GPS on him because he's only young, so we better. This is a bee that's hovering around the motherwort. So motherwort is another medicinal plant that's grown here year after year, and it has naturalized itself as well. It's a great wildflower, and you can see it looks lovely too. And it has spread a little bit. It's just kind of spreading itself by seed. This is the new garden here. And let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to come back to the comments now in a minute. And if you have any questions at all, let me know in the comments or in the live chat, and I will try to answer them. And please put the word question in all capitals in front. So this is the new garden, just the start of it. And unfortunately, the birds have been covering the freshly made paths with wood chips. They've spread some of the compost on there, so they must have been searching for worms, and the birds seem to be spreading the compost onto the path. So that seems to be the biggest problem I've got this year. And of course, different grasses and nettles going to seed is another story. Who can tell me what plant that is? It's a beautiful plant, and it's called Great Mullen. It has many uses. It's also known as cowboy's toilet paper because the leaves are really soft. Now, I've never tried it myself now to use as toilet paper, but I know that the leaves make for really good tea. It's an expectorant, so it actually expels mucilage from your lungs. So it's very good for that. I've had to use that before, and it was very good. And it is a traditional plant to use in the household. And the flowers are also, they make for a good oil for the ear if you have a pain in the ear. You can see there's always a bit of mildew on these plants. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I seem to have that most years, although I don't have any blight at all on the potatoes. That's what it looks like in this corner of the garden. You can see here, lots of different plants. There's a walnut tree in the background, and there's some different varieties of elders and black currant and white currant here, and buddleia. Buddleia brings in the insects a lot. And this is another corner of different plants. It's kind of a polyculture plant. I let nature take care of the spacing. I just simply provide the environment and stick the plants I want into the ground and let nature take care of the rest of it. But of course, sometimes the grasses are popping through, but considering what was here before, it's not bad. I didn't put down any cardboard here, I don't think. So you can actually smother the weeds using only compost and not bother with the cardboard. But again, if you have enough compost, that is. So you'd want to put down probably in Ireland anyway, you'd probably want to put down a foot of compost to smother the existing vegetation if it's in the middle of a field. And that would be a bit of a waste of compost. It would be better to put down cardboard or smother the weeds in advance using plastic and put half as much compost as that on it, so 6 inches or 15 centimeters. This is the German chamomile, and it grows so quickly, it's amazing. I actually only planted those about a month ago, and they're huge now. And that can be used for tea now. So we could harvest that and dry it again in the dryer. You can get the dryer, Mike, on Amazon. That's where we bought it anyway. And there's a link for that on our products page. We have a recommended products and books page on our website. And of course, if you click the links on there for the products, you support us a little bit as well. We get a little bit of commission. And it is just gardensforlife.ie/products. Again, he's a very photogenic dog. So last year I ended up with nearly no courgettes. So this year I accidentally, I just planted like say 2 trays of 9 courgette plants, and yeah, they all grew. So now I have about 18 courgette plants in the garden, which means that we're going to have way too many courgettes, and that can be a curse, and it can also be a blessing especially if you have animals that'll eat them. We have rabbits and chickens, so they're happy to have some of those fresh vegetables, and they're entitled to them because that is more of a species appropriate diet, to give them greens every day and other food other than grains as well. And like, as you know, who here, let me know in the chat, who here ever had too many courgettes? Some years I had no courgettes. It's just a thing, I guess. Either you have no courgettes or you have too many. But look at this. They're all going to flower now all at once. And these 12 plants in this section of the garden here are all starting to flower at once now. And the other ones that have down the garden, it's a different variety. And they've been flowering for about a week or so. And we've gotten a few courgettes off them already. So you can see here. Again, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll happily answer them once we come back to the chat. I'm nearly done with pictures here, so we'll do the raffle as well after that. So, well, not a raffle, it's a giveaway. So tonight we're giving away 2 times 12 cloves of elephant garlic that we are currently harvesting. So tomorrow I'm going to harvest it, and I'm going to make a video about a new video of the elephant garlic harvest. If you want to see last year's harvest and the year before, we have videos on that as well. So you can type garlic or elephant garlic into our channel, into our channels, or into our website, and you'll find those videos if you want to see those already. And I have a video tour of this garden also. This is the new garden that I started in April and in May. So this took 1 month to do, basically, to spread the compost, smother the weeds, and put down the compost and plant it all up and make the paths. And it wasn't a month full time now. It was only maybe a week of work over a month. And this is oca. You can see it looks kind of like clover, I guess. And the yacon in between. So the oca is actually a tuberous oxalis. So it's kind of like wood sorrel. And it tastes a bit like it too. It has a bit of oxalic acid in the leaves. And the tubers are a little like small little potatoes. So they're really nice. And they were actually brought into Europe right around the time of the famine in 1830 to compete with the potato. And it never took off. So people preferred the potato. And in other countries in the world, they actually became the daily staple. So like New Zealand, that's why they're known as New Zealand jam. So you can see here, it's kind of starting to fill in now. I'm hoping to create a canopy, which is canopy gardening, where there's no space for the weeds in late summer. This is a patch, a mixed patch of, that's the bronze fennel, which is way sweeter than the regular green fennel. And we have some marshmallow plants, yacons, and valerian in between. But you can see, I don't mind if the plants are competing for space. They'll grow taller and they'll spread out. And if some of them don't do too well, that's okay. I don't mind, because the other ones will take the space. That's why if people always ask me, what would you recommend for planting a hedge or a shelter belt? And I always say, sorry. I like to tell them that make sure that you plant a mixed hedge, so that if one species of tree doesn't do too well, the other ones will pick up the slack. So polycultures are always a good way to go, because especially here we have feverfew in the foreground, and that is going to attract beneficial insects because they're providing nectar to the insects, like aka food. And then the insects, while they're there, they might hop on over onto your crops and take care of any kind of other insects that shouldn't be there. That reduces the pest pressure, something awful. And basically, it's kind of like having livestock guardian dogs, or just a dog around the yard, and that keeps the fox away if you have chickens. So it's not a guarantee, but it definitely reduces the pest pressure an awful lot. Same as bringing in your predatory insects as well, like the ladybird and all the other ones. This is corn. It still didn't grow much in the last 2 months, so I'm quite disappointed with it now. It should be probably the same height as myself now at this stage, but it's only like 1.5 feet or so. And did anyone else here grow corn this year? Let me know in the comments or in the chat. And are they on schedule? I found that an awful lot of plants actually this year have been they've been very late in the year. They've been growing extremely slowly, even though it was quite warm for the last 2 months, but it also was very dry. So I think that probably has stunted an awful lot of plants. Even though, look at this garden. I mean, I'm very happy with it. The growth rate is phenomenal. This is only 6 weeks old now, 7 weeks old now, this part. And things are already really taken off. This is the Nero de Toscana, but it's actually a variety called Black Magic, which has just the same variety basically as the dinosaur kale, and it just has bigger leaves. You can see it here. So I have plastic in between because there was a patch of nettles here and I didn't want to have to pull them up. So I'm simply covering them for a year or so, maybe even longer than a year. We'll see if they come back after that. And in the meantime, this space is not wasted because I'm letting the pumpkin vines actually climb or over it, and they take in the heat as well off the plastic. So when the sun hits it and warms up the soil underneath. So you can see that worked for us before. If you're interested in seeing how we grew our pumpkins, we grew like 200 Oshikikuri pumpkins before. It's a Japanese pumpkin, a smaller pumpkin, but it's very tasty. And it stores quite well as well for about 3 or 4 months. Take a look at our pumpkin video. I think it's just called Pumpkin Harvest. And we brought it out around Halloween. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago now. But you can see here, that's a nice variety. I think that's Turk's Turban or something like that it's called. And I'm also growing Oshikikuri. So it's quite a decorative leaf. So all of this new garden that you just saw will eventually turn into this. So I'm going to cover it all in wood chips eventually. And then it's going to be more berry bushes and woody plants. And cane plants, of course, such as raspberries. But I'll definitely have an awful lot less leafy greens grown. So you can see it here. That's the wood chips. And those actually do get eaten up eventually by the soil life below. But you can also have another crop. So by just inoculating the wood chips with mushrooms when they're fresh. So King Stropharia is the first mushroom of choice because it's a really nice culinary mushroom, tastes a bit like steak, and it grows really easily in wood chips as well. But it does break down the wood chips quicker, so that means you'll have to top up the wood chips sooner. But if you want to break down your wood chips and turn them into compost, well, then that's all the better. You have the soil life from eating away the wood chips from below, and you have your mycelium throughout. Mycelium are simply the roots of the mushroom throughout the wood chip layer. And that provides you with another harvest as well. Several, actually, per year. So these... this type of gardening is called lasagna gardening, but when you look it up on YouTube, it's probably better to look up Back to Eden if you want to check more about that. Back to Eden gardening would be only wood chips, no layer of like mushroom compost underneath. For example, Paul Gauci, that kind of coined the term back to Eden gardening, he simply put down, it was a very droughtful area. Is that the right word? Basically an area with very little rainfall where he's living. I think it's in Washington State. I'm not too sure. And he basically asked God. He's very religious, and he likes to take it into context as well. And I like his garden tours. When he walks around, he talks about how nature actually does things. Is so much simpler. There's a forest growing over there, and I can't grow my vegetables here without irrigation. And the well is not deep enough. I can't drill it deep enough to get enough water, and the well keeps drying out. So you ask God, how do I water my garden without having to irrigate it? Basically, how do I keep my plants watered without having to irrigate it manually? And all he did was look at the forest across the field and say, well, the trees are growing, and they don't need any irrigation. They're just growing in a forest in naturally. And essentially, he mimicked the forest floor by putting wood chips on the ground, covered the entire ground with wood chips, and then eventually they'll break down underneath, and you can sow into it. So you can grow your vegetable seedlings and all the rest. He has a lovely garden actually, and what an orchard he has as well. He's actually an arborist by profession. So let me come back to the questions here. Now, we're going to do our giveaway now in a second. I'm just going to check for questions to see if there's any of them here. Hello, Graham. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us here. Mike's saying, courgettes, we usually have the same thing with cucumbers. Yeah. So once you have cucumber plants, you think, sure, I might as well start 10 or 20 of them at the start of the year. And then they start growing. And of course, it's better to have a few plants than have just one or two. Because what if one or two die? Well, one is none. What is it? One is none, two is one, three is, I don't remember. But you're better off to have multiples of the same plant in case one or two don't do too well. And it's better to have, I think we'd all agree, it's better to have too many courgettes or cucumbers than have none at all. So let me see here. So Mike is also asking about alternatives to drying. So drying food, like dehydrating. Well, you can use heat to extract moisture from food, flowers or leaves or tea. You can also do it with a freeze dryer. So a freeze dryer is an expensive piece of equipment. If you've ever looked them up, you'll know that they're about 2,000 to 4,000 euro, and you can get big ones as well for about 5,000. That may sound like a mad amount of money to you, but we'll see. Maybe we can figure out something. Maybe we'll, if you find that if you're not going to use it all year round, maybe there's a way we can figure out some kind of a community share, and we can buy one and share it out between people whenever people want to use it. We'll see if we can arrange something like that in the near future. Let me see here. Yeah, the corn is only half the height you'd be expecting this time of year. Yeah, no, I think it's probably the drought, I'd say. I find that corn is quite sporadic. It's either troubled by the wind, the rain, it could knock it over, or even a drought could actually knock it over, same as the Jerusalem artichokes. So let me see here. So what we'll do is we'll do a quick giveaway. But first, I'm just going to do a little quiz with you. Well, who here can tell me? Now, I'm not going to wait for a response necessarily, but tell me what plant this is in the live chat. Anyone? I'm going to move on to the next plant already. So by the time I see the comments coming in, I'll let you know what the last plant was. And this plant here, do you know what plant this is? I give you a hint, it's in the mint family, and the tubers are edible. They're starchy. Okay, so this one here was actually feverfew. And yes, Elizabeth, that's right. So who here can tell me what plant this is? And we'll compare it to this one. Can you see the difference? Now let's see if we get some of our experts out. I'll give you a hint. One is a tuberous. One is tuberous and the other is not. So let me know, and I'll give you a little hint. It'll give it away. This is the flower of one of the two. So this one here, this was actually, I'll give you the answer now. This is the marsh woundwort, and it's a tremendously useful plant. It's actually European wildflower, and the tubers are edible, or the roots are like a rhizome, and they're edible. They're very useful, and we've got lots of them this year. So we have those available in our shop as well. We have an online shop if you're looking for plants. So nasturtium, that's right. Yeah, this is a nasturtium leaf, okay, with that flower. But this one here is actually a different one. This is a distant cousin from the Andes. It's a tuberous nasturtium called mashua. So the leaves are actually really mild compared to these ones. These ones, nasturtium leaves are always very spicy, but the mashua leaves are extremely mild. So there's no spiciness at all, and you can eat those throughout the growing season. So it's a very good salad crop to grow. But the tubers are also edible, but they are very spicy, and you can harvest those in the winter or just leave them in the ground in your forest garden. Definitely one of our plants, one of our favorites for zero maintenance is the mashua, same as the Jerusalem artichoke. So let me see here. I'll give you a couple more. What is this one? Do you know what that is? I'll give you one hint. It grows at the forest edge. Does anyone know? Can you guess? I'm going to give you one more in the meantime while the comments come in. This one, which is not the same as this one, it's kind of similar though. So do you know what this is? Let me know in the comments if you know. I'm just testing my audience now a little bit. Anyone? Anyone for the last one, the purple flower? So this is wood mallow. The leaves are edible, the flowers are edible too. They become quite sweet, but the mashua flowers are really nice to eat, especially towards the end of the season when they come up at the end of October, even into November. Yes, Kevin, well done. This is lamb's ear. Yeah. Their leaves are really soft. It's actually in the sage family, I believe. I've never used it for eating or for making tea. I'm not sure. Have you ever made use of it? But it's a lovely plant to have. It's perennial and it's super hardy. And it's very decorative in the garden. The foliage is like silver. And I'm growing more of those. I'm actually growing another 50 of these now. And I'm just planting them everywhere. They're nice to have. And I'm pretty sure they're edible too. I'm not 100% sure on that though. And last one. Can anyone guess what this is? I'll give you a hint. The Romans brought it into the UK and they used it to fix wounds. And the leaves are also known as thousand leaf. Achillea milfolia is the name in Latin, and it's yarrow. So look at that. It's also known as globe flower because the flower looks a bit like a globe on the very top, but these are not fully mature yet. So this is a tremendously useful plant to have in the garden. It's also a good antibiotic as well. I used it before, made a tincture from it, and I used it for a toothache actually with a pipette. Tremendously useful. And the leaves, of course, clot the blood, same as cayenne. So we're going to do our little let me see here. Just give me a second. We're going to do our little giveaway. So we are giving away 2 times, we're giving away 2 portions of elephant garlic. So all you have to do to enter is type enter in all capital letters into the chat. Couldn't be simpler. So we're going to do a giveaway. For those of you in the audio that listen to this afterwards, or if you're watching this afterwards, you can, don't be disappointed if you don't win as well. You can just try again next week. We'll have a giveaway. We'll give away something else. And so just type the word enter into the chat, in the live chat or the comments, if you want to enter the giveaway. And we'll pick a winner at random with our random number generator here. We'll start up our flux capacitor and we'll get it turning over. So type the word enter in all capital letters into the chat to enter our giveaway. It's free anyway. So we also have elephant garlic available. But of course, no point in buying any until you know whether you won. So this is our online shop if you want to have a look and support us. We'll talk more about that afterwards though. Now, Bianca, you can't enter, but you can have some garlic if you want. I can go and get some for you in the garden. Bianca is my wife. She's actually in the house. I'm in her studio at the moment. I'm probably going to free it up for you, actually. Let me know if you want to use the studio again after. You can if you want to. So let me see now. So we're going to pick the winners at random now of our giveaway. And the 2 winners are, let me see, Paul Armiger. Can you please email us to contact@gardensforlife.ie and we will send you more details. And the second winner is Kevin. Well done, Kevin. I think you won something before, didn't you? I think you won a voucher or something before in the previous weeks. Well done. So Kevin and Paul are the winners. Please email me straight after this show and email me contact@gardensforlife.ie. Thanks for participating, everybody. And if you'd like to support us, you can take a look at our online shop. We ship anywhere inside of Europe. And you can take a look and see what kind of plants we have. We have potted plants, cuttings, tubers, roots, all kinds of different perennial vegetable starts. And we're going to harvest our elephant garlic tomorrow and dry it. Actually, I'll be putting out a video about that. And I have a video coming out about like a video tour of the new garden, actually. We also did a full video tour of the entire garden last week. So if you haven't watched that yet, watch the latest video on the channel or on the website. You can also subscribe to our email list. It's free. And you can get weekly updates. And if you want to support us, you can also become a member of the Gardens for Life support community. And members get all kinds of different benefits, including a big discount on all the things we do. And you'll get access to our no-dig online course for free. So if you are a member and you haven't got access to the no-dig course, please let me know. The course is still being finalized at the moment, but it's actually being sold. It's for sale for €69 on the website, which I think would save you all kinds of, like, it could save you about 2 years worth of work. I wish I had known all the things that I have been talking about in the course. And it'll definitely be a great help to you. I think you'll save more than the €69 overall just by having the knowledge that we have by making many dozens of no-dig gardens over the years. But again, you'll also get access in the members lobby. You'll get access to our free ebooks as well. So please do become a member if you really appreciate our content, and we'd highly appreciate your support. Thank you. We're on Patreon as well. So our Patreon address is here. If you're on Patreon already and you want to join us there, that's fine too. All right, folks. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Hang on. So thanks for joining us for our questions and answers session, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.